Hello and welcome back to the Product Pop, where we talk about all things tech, business, startups, ideas, products, and everything else related. Today we are talking about startup accelerator programs and share with you how you can get into a top accelerator program before you have a product. I did a mini accelerator series on my TikTok. Here are a couple of them, and that was mostly focused on what an accelerator is, the benefits of an accelerator, how you might apply for one. But today's video is really about how you can position yourself in the best place to then apply. If you have been following my TikTok for a while, you'll know that I'm a huge advocate of no-code tools and no-code development. I'm also a huge believer in minimal viable products, prototypes, and getting as far as you can with a product or business idea that you have without having to spend money on actual software development. If you're wondering what a startup accelerator is, then I'm going to quickly share a snippet from my TikTok.
Accelerators are super short, intensive periods of time where you will get access to mentors, advisors, and experienced entrepreneurs to help coach you through every aspect of your business.
Some accelerators that you may have heard of include Y Combinator. In Australia, there is Startup Bootcamp, there is StartMate, and I'll put some other startup accelerator logos on the screen. But let me know if you want me to do a separate video more generally about accelerator programs, and I would be happy to follow up with that. Now, why should you listen to my advice when it comes to this? Well, I have a little bit of credibility, so let me win you over. I have had 2 startups of my own, and one of them I actually took part in a global accelerator program. The program was Startup Bootcamp, and I took part in it in 2018 for 3 months along with my co-founder. We managed to also raise some seed investment following that startup program, and we also went into the program without having a product. Each program does have its own set of eligibility criteria. Some of them are willing to accept really early stage ideas and startups, whereas others are more focused on scale and maturing existing startups that already have a lot of traction. But my experience was with an accelerator program that did prefer to have a startup that had some traction and did have a product in market, but I was able to overcome that through the tips that I'm going to share. So I have distilled my accelerator experience into what I thought were the top 6 things that I did to help me stand out when applying and what contributed to the success of me getting into the program. Okay, so number 1, I used my previous career experience when I applied for the program. My career history consisted of working at a top tier consulting company, at a hyper growing and scaling technology company that was once a startup, and working at Shopify, which was also a hyper-growing technology company, and I also had a previous startup. Combining those 4 things together, I was able to sell myself in terms of the skills that I had and the experience I had working in tech and consulting. Working in a top-tier consulting company has its benefits, and it was only at a moment like this where I actually really felt like I was able to leverage the brand name that was this consulting company. I think it's also known that a lot of these big consulting companies work with really big enterprises. And so I had exposure to working with stakeholders across these massive companies. Putting all that together meant I could work well under pressure. I was able to communicate with a range of stakeholders, and to be honest, it was that I was able to get into a top tier consulting company which already has quite a high bar. So thinking about that together, I really used the brand of this company and I really talked about it a lot. And I also explained how consulting roles are very demanding and they have a lot of pressure with a lot of timelines and a lot of expectation and stakeholder management. My technology company experiences, so the 2 tech companies I joined these companies when they were amidst their scale and they were growing exponentially. And working in an environment like that, it's a very uncertain, unstable, ambiguous environment. Things are not defined. You're having to often just figure things out. And that translates really well to a startup. Things aren't going to be prescribed, they're not going to be defined. And since I was able to demonstrate that I worked in a technology environment like that, that was also leverage that I had from my previous experience. Being hands-on with technology in these companies was also a big bonus. I classify myself as a non-technical founder. I do have tech experience. I studied information systems. I have worked with engineers, and this is what I was able to leverage when I was explaining about my prior experience. Lastly, I had a previous startup. Now, this was a huge benefit for me applying to this program. One, it shows that I've done this startup thing before. It means that that first startup failed and I'm not scared to try again, so I'm resilient. I also have an idea about what it takes to have an idea in my head and get it out into the market. Most founders do not succeed the first time. And that's actually seen in a very good light when it comes to investors, when it comes to applying for a program like this, because if you've already done a startup once, hopefully you made a lot of mistakes and you learned from them. And so second time around, hopefully you're likely to make less mistakes. And again, I think that's where my startup experience really came in useful. Think about what previous career experience you have. Think about the industries you've worked in, the roles you've had, what people you worked with in those roles. Think about how each of those roles helped you develop skills that can then translate to you having your own startup. Number 2, I sold the people on the team and not the product. The one thing to remember when it comes to startups is that oftentimes people are not investing in the product. They are investing in the people. You can have a really good idea, and in the hands of the wrong people, the idea means nothing. What's more important is that you have the right people who can execute on whatever idea or product that there might be. For me and my co-founders, we worked on our previous startup together. So we already had a good working relationship. We knew how each other worked, and together we had been through a prior startup experience, as I was mentioning before, that's looked upon very favorably. Secondly, we actually used to work together. So we used to work together in the consulting company. So again, the consulting experience was good on my record, but also good on his. We had a really solid history and friendship, which meant that hopefully we were more likely not to just walk away from each other, and we were sort of committed to doing this together because of the friendship that we had. Probably most importantly, we had extremely complementary skills. I was more focused on the tech and the product and being the face of the startup, whereas he was more focused on the finance, legal, operational side of things. It's really important to appear together as a good partnership, as a good team. Startups with co-founders do have a higher success rate. There is a statistic that says either investors are more likely to invest in startups founded by more than one person, or less startups fail when they are started by more than one person, something like that. The third thing we did was we demonstrated the upfront work we had done when applying. Because we didn't have a product and we didn't have any traction in the market, no customers, how did we make sure that we were taken seriously? We showed up having done a lot of prep work, and I'm talking about months and months of prep work, and we made sure this was known and we made sure that we demonstrated it. So how we did this was by, one, really knowing our problem space. If anyone asked us anything about the problem space, we knew about it. We were able to quote statistics. We were able to explain how the energy industry was different in different countries. We knew who the target consumer was. We knew the problems with retailers in the energy industry. We knew what competitors were doing. We basically knew the problem space inside out. And this wasn't just in our head. We made sure that we had laid out this problem in a really concise and easy to digest pitch deck. I'll put a little example of it here. This was our first ever pitch deck, so it was probably really ugly and horrific if I look at it now, but it really did the job. We also prepared by rehearsing. I would spend hours in my room just by myself, talking out loud like I am now, articulating the problem. articulating the problem using different words, using different language depending on who I was speaking to. I'll put a list here of the things that I suggest you should prepare for if you do not have the product already. Number 4, as soon as we realized we had a chance at getting into the program, so we were kind of shortlisted into the top like 40, I believe, we started to put together a very basic prototype. And I mean extremely basic. High fidelity mock-ups in a InVision clickable or interactive prototype. This really did help us because when we started going through the process and we put our application in, we obviously said that we didn't have a product. But over the course of a few weeks, as we went through the application process, as we went through meeting people in the program who interviewed us and we did pitches, when we felt like there was actually a good chance at us being successful, we decided we would put that prototype together because that would also show the team at the program that we were serious about this, that we were willing to put in the work. A prototype is obviously also good because there's nothing that can really replace a tangible example of what your idea is. Problems are a lot easier to define, especially when you have metrics or statistics, but the solution sometimes can be, there are just so many things you can do with a solution or a product. So anything that you have that you can kind of show someone. Number 5 is we decided that we were going to be more prepared than anyone else who was being shortlisted. Each program will be different, but the one that we applied for, there was a thing called selection days. And that was basically once you were shortlisted into the top 40 startups, you went into a 2-day back-to-back selection process whereby you would do a pitch for your startup to lots of different people, a lot of people that the program had in their network, and they would help to select who got to the final. 9 hours of back-to-back pitches and discussion for 2 days straight. We wanted to go in there and be remembered. We had a point of difference, and our point of difference was we went in with a 1-page back-to-back takeaway that we could leave with each person that we spoke to. Now, this sounds really simple. And anytime we talk to someone, we don't want there to be a chance that they will forget what we said. They're also digesting a lot of information, a lot of pitches from a lot of people. And so we're going to do our bit to make their job easier. The other reason we stood out with this is because everyone else did their pitch on a traditional laptop. And we didn't. We did our pitch with a piece of paper. So that also made us stand out. Not only could people follow along the pitch because we gave all of them a copy, they also took it away with them. They could also write notes on it. I cannot explain to you what a big difference this made based on the feedback that we received. Now, if you have a demo, there is nothing that will replace that. And please, by all means, use that because you have it. Where you don't have a product and you don't have something tangible to show, my point is just to go a little bit out of the way and do something a little bit out of the box to make yourself stand out. Because we also went to the efforts of putting this together, which, by the way, even though it was just like 2 pages back to back, it had a lot of information on it. So you could see the effort that we had gone to in doing this. And the last point is to just demonstrate your commitment. Taking on a startup, especially full-time, is no small feat. It is a huge commitment. And you need to demonstrate that you are ready for that commitment. So the ways in which we did that was I moved country. So I moved from New Zealand to Australia when I decided that I was going to take this startup on full time. This was well before I knew about this program and that I would be applying for it. But I had already made that commitment. I had quit my job. I had moved to a new country, all in pursuit of this startup idea. And I was able to talk about that. And I made sure I did talk about it. I did not let that slide under the rug. And so people could already see, wow, she's quit her job. She's made herself available to work on this full time. She is seriously committed. My co-founder was actually based in a different city, so he would fly in. That was also another level of commitment. Ways in which you could show commitment is, again, how you're making time to make this work, how you're balancing this with your full-time job if you have one. Maybe you've put in a lot of your own money. That's a huge sign of commitment. Basically, what risks have you taken will demonstrate how much you are committed to this idea. My kind of final words of encouragement are that sometimes you should just apply anyway. As much as you do want to look at the eligibility criteria, sometimes there is no harm in applying. You do not know whose eye you might catch. I'm a huge advocate for no code, for prototyping, and not investing a lot of money into fully building a product if you don't need to. You can actually get very, very far without investing money into full-on software engineering. If you did get this far, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope this video gave you a little bit of insight into how far you can get without actually having built a product, and your idea can actually go a long way. If you are on TikTok, please check out my account. It is called The Product Pup. It is where I post daily videos all about business, tech, product, and ideas. And you'll also find my accelerator series videos on there already. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.